So, these are the kinds of ablatives, or the uses of the ablatives by Sarah Bauer and Cooper Spinelli.
So the first one is means or instrument, which basically is when the ablative describes the thing with which the action is done, and it answers the question by what means. So for example, Salius Pungione vulneratus est. Salius was killed by a dagger. By a dagger was the ablative.
Yes. So, the second one is ablative of agent, which tells by whom something is done. So, by whom something is done. It's used with the preposition a or ab. So, an example would be Dumnorix ab equitibus interfectus est, which would mean Dumnorix was killed by the horseman.
Manner. This is when the ablative shows how something is done, uses cum. Example, Simon summa cum celeritate incedebat. Simon was marching with the greatest haste. So that's showing with the greatest haste is the manner in which he was marching.
So the next one is ablative of accompaniment, which is with whom something is done. So it shows with whom something is done. Uses cum. So an example would be Gaius bibebat cum amicis, which would mean Gaius was drinking with friends, and with friends is with whom he's drinking.
Time when the ablative describes the time when something is done, and this one does not use a preposition. So for example, Corto die revenit, he came back on the fourth day.
So the next one is just sid space. So with certain
these are all the prepositions that take the ablative.
Yeah, with certain prepositions, the noun just takes the ablative. So with like sid space is the way you remember it. So an example would be cum amicis ex taberna discussit, which would mean he left the inn with friends.
Extent or duration of time. Duration of time or extent in which something is being done, and this one also does not use a preposition. So for an example, laboravimus quartus horas, which means we worked for 4 hours. So you worked over the time period of 4 hours instead of just saying like we worked during the 4th hour, or like on the 4th. Never mind.
Yeah.
The 4th hour.
So ablative of description describes something, usually the physical features of something. So an example would be praeco erat homo malignis oculus, which would mean the herald was a man with spiteful eyes. So with spiteful eyes is describing the physical features of the herald.
Ablative of comparison. This is when the ablative compares two things, sometimes used instead of quam. So this is like in place of quam. So for example, peritior frater sum, I am more skilled than my brother, which is just then my brother is comparing you or the I in the subject to your brother.
So ablative of measure. It's also called ablative of degree of difference. It indicates by how much something is different from something else. So an example is hoc multo difficilis est, which means this is much more difficult. So yes, this is it. It's indicating how much more difficult this is. So it's measuring the degree of difference. And that's all of them.
That's it.
So, yep.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.